The champagne flutes gleamed under the restaurant's crystal chandelier, each one positioned perfectly around our reserved table. Tonight was supposed to be the culmination of 4 brutal years. My MBA graduation dinner, celebrating not just my degree, but the 6-figure consulting offer I'd accepted at one of the country's most prestigious firms. My fiancé James sat to my left, his hand warm in mine, while my father beamed with pride across the table. But my mother's smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and I was about to discover why in the most horrifying way possible. "A toast," my father announced, raising his glass. "To Elena, who proved that hard work and determination can." "Wait," my mother interrupted, her voice strangely tight. "Let me get Elena a fresh drink first. That one's been sitting out." I glanced at my glass. It had been sitting for maybe 2 minutes. "Mom, it's fine. I insist." Something in her tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. She was already reaching for my glass, but her hand was trembling. "Let me just get you something better." That's when James leaned in and whispered for words that changed everything. "Elena, I saw something." My heart rate spiked instantly. James's face had gone pale, his fingers digging into my forearm with unexpected force. Across the table, my mother had frozen, the glass halfway to her lips as if she'd been about to. "No, that couldn't be right. What did you see?" I asked quietly, but my mother heard me. Her face transformed in an instant. The mask of maternal concern cracked, revealing something underneath that I'd never seen before. A flash of pure panic mixed with something darker. She set the glass down too quickly, the champagne sloshing over the rim. "James is probably just tired from the ceremony," Mom said, her laugh brittle and artificial. "You know how emotional these occasions can be." But James wasn't looking at my mother. He was staring at her purse, the designer bag my mother kept close at all times, the one she'd just been rummaging through moments before reaching for my drink. The purse that was now conspicuously closed, though I could swear I'd seen a small bottle or vial being slipped inside. "I need to use the restroom," my mother announced abruptly, grabbing her purse. "Don't start the toast without me." She stood so quickly her chair scraped against the floor, drawing looks from nearby tables. As she hurried away, James's grip on my arm tightened until it hurt. "Elena," he breathed, his voice shaking. "I watched her put something in your drink. Something from a small brown bottle. I saw her do it." The restaurant suddenly felt too hot, too bright, too loud. My father was asking what was wrong, but his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. I looked down at my champagne glass, the golden bubbles rising innocently to the surface, and my stomach turned to ice. My own mother. My own mother had poisoned me. "Are you sure?" The question came out as barely a whisper. "James, are you absolutely?" "I'm sure." His eyes were wide, terrified. "I didn't understand what I was seeing at first, but then she tried to make you drink it, and the way she looked when I said something." James's voice cracked. "Elena, what are we going to do?" The question hung in the air between us, massive and suffocating. What was I going to do? Confront her? Call the police? Pretend I hadn't heard any of this and see what happened? I picked up the glass, watching the bubbles dance, and made a decision that would either save my life or destroy my family forever. My hand was steadier than I expected as I raised the poisoned champagne to my lips, making sure my mother could see me from across the restaurant. But I wasn't going to drink it. I was going to make her think I did, and what happened next would reveal the truth about the woman who gave birth to me. A truth so devastating that when I finally understood it, I would wish I'd never asked the question. My mother returned to the table exactly 3 minutes later, and I'll never forget the look on her face when she saw the empty champagne glass in front of me. For just a fraction of a second, I saw something that looked almost like satisfaction, maybe even relief, flicker across her features before the maternal mask snapped back into place. "Oh good," she said, sliding into her seat. "You didn't wait for me." I'd actually poured the champagne into James's water glass under the table. But my mother didn't know that. She thought I'd consumed whatever she'd slipped into my drink. The question now was, what was she expecting to happen? "I'm not feeling well," I announced, watching my mother's face carefully. Suddenly really nauseous. My father's concern was immediate and genuine. "You've been pushing yourself too hard with finals and the job interviews. Maybe we should." No, my mother cut in, and there was that strange edge to her voice again. "She just needs some fresh air. Elena, why don't you and I step outside for a moment? Mother-daughter time can wait, can't it, Richard?" Mother-daughter time. She'd just revealed something crucial. She wanted me alone. Whatever was supposed to happen, She needed me separated from witnesses. The realization sent a chill down my spine. Actually, James interjected, his voice carefully neutral, I'll come with you. I could use some air too. My mother's smile tightened. I really think Elena and I should have a private moment. You understand, don't you, James? A mother's prerogative on her daughter's graduation night. The tension at the table was becoming palpable. My father looked confused, glancing between the three of us as if trying to solve an equation that didn't quite add up. He had no idea what was unfolding right in front of him. Mom, I said slowly, why don't you tell us what was in that bottle? The words dropped like a bomb. My mother's face went completely blank. Not shocked, not confused, blank. It was the expression of someone whose entire strategy had just collapsed, someone calculating their next move with desperate speed. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her hand moved unconsciously to her purse. The small brown bottle, James pressed. The one you used to. Enough. My mother's voice cut like a blade, and for the first time in my life, I heard something in her tone that made me genuinely afraid. James, I think you're confused. Perhaps you should excuse yourself. I'm not going anywhere, James said firmly, and I fell a little more in love with him in that moment. My father finally found his voice. Someone needs to explain what's happening. Helen, what bottle? What is this about? My mother's eyes darted between us, and I could see her mind working, recalculating. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed completely, softer, wounded, trembling with what sounded like genuine hurt. I can't believe this, she whispered, and tears actually began forming in her eyes. After everything I've sacrificed for you, Elena, you're going to believe this man, this stranger who's only been in your life for 8 months, over your own mother? It was a masterful performance. I watched my father's expression shift from confusion to protective concern for his wife. This was the woman he'd known for 30 years, after all. The woman who'd raised me, nursed me through childhood illnesses, attended every school event. But I'd seen that flash of satisfaction when she thought I'd drunk the poison. Empty your purse, I said quietly. Elena. My father's voice carried genuine shock now. That's completely inappropriate. Your mother doesn't need to. Empty it, or I'm calling 911 right now and telling them I believe I've been poisoned. The word poisoned hung in the air like smoke. Other diners were starting to notice our table now, sensing drama. My mother's tears had stopped as abruptly as they'd started, her face hardening into something I barely recognized. You don't want to do this, she said, and it wasn't a plea, it was a warning. You really, truly don't want to do this, Elena. Why? I leaned forward, my heart hammering. What exactly am I going to find? For a long moment, my mother just stared at me. Then, slowly, deliberately, she reached for her purse. My father was protesting, James was gripping my hand, and I was about to discover that the truth was so much worse than simple poison. When she pulled out the small brown bottle and set it on the table, my father gasped. Because he recognized it, and the look of absolute betrayal on his face told me that my mother's crime wasn't just against me. It was against our entire family, and it had been going on for much, much longer than I could have possibly imagined. That's my medication, my father whispered, his face draining of color. Helen, that's my heart medication. Why do you have it? The bottle sat in the center of the table like a piece of evidence at a crime scene. Digoxin, I could see the label now. A medication that, in the right doses, regulated heart rhythm. In the wrong doses. How much did you give me? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the ice spreading through my veins. My mother said nothing. She was staring at my father now, and the expression on her face was something between defiance and desperation. Around us, the restaurant continued its evening buzz, oblivious to the fact that an attempted murder confession was unfolding at table 12. Helen, my father's voice cracked. Tell me you didn't. Tell me you didn't try to poison our daughter. It wasn't poison, she finally said, and her voice was hollow, defeated. It was just supposed to make her sick. Sick enough to miss the flight tomorrow. Sick enough to decline the job offer. The words made no sense. I looked at James, who looked equally confused, then back at my mother. Why? The question came out as barely a whisper. Why would you want me to miss the job? My mother laughed then, a broken, bitter sound that made my skin crawl. Because the job is in Seattle, Elena. 3,000 miles away. And I can't let you go that far. Not now. Not when everything is finally falling apart. What's falling apart? My father demanded, but I could see understanding beginning to dawn in his eyes. A terrible, creeping realization that made him look suddenly old. My mother turned to him, and when she spoke, her voice was almost gentle. He knows, Richard. I can see it in your face. You've finally figured it out. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father's hands were shaking now, gripping the edge of the table as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. How long? He asked. 6 months. Maybe less. The doctor isn't sure. My mother's composure was cracking now, real tears replacing the calculated ones from before. I didn't want to tell you like this. I didn't want to tell you at all. James's sharp intake of breath told me he'd understood before I had. You're dying. My mother nodded slowly, and just like that, the entire evening shifted on its axis. The villain of the story suddenly became something more complicated, more human, and infinitely more tragic. Pancreatic cancer, she said quietly. Stage 4. By the time they found it, it had already spread. I have maybe 6 months, probably less. And I know, her voice broke. I know it was wrong what I did. I know it was insane. But the thought of you being 3,000 miles away, building your life while I... She couldn't finish the sentence. My father was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. Why didn't you tell me? Helen, why didn't you? Because you would have looked at me exactly the way you're looking at me now, she said. Like I'm already gone. Like I'm already a ghost. The revelation should have changed everything. It should have made me forgive her instantly, understand her desperation, excuse the inexcusable. But as I sat there, looking at this woman who'd given me life and had just tried to steal my future to buy herself a few more months of my presence, I felt something more complicated than forgiveness. I felt rage. So your plan was what? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. Make me sick enough to miss my flight? Destroy my career opportunity? Keep me trapped here while you slowly died, knowing that I'd given up everything to watch it happen? Elena, James tried to interject, but I couldn't stop. You were going to let me blame myself. Let me think I'd gotten food poisoning or the flu or whatever the digoxin would have looked like. You were going to watch me call Seattle and tell them I couldn't start, watch me lose the opportunity of a lifetime, and you were never going to tell me the truth. I just wanted more time with you, my mother whispered. Is that so monstrous? Yes, I said, and the word felt like a knife. Yes, it is. The look on her face nearly broke me. But I wasn't done yet. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, and every eye at the table was on me now. You're going to tell me everything. Every detail. How long you've been planning this. Whether you've done it before. And then, I paused, and in that pause, I made a decision that would define the rest of my mother's short life and haunt me for the rest of mine. Then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do about it. And Mom, you're really not going to like my answer. My mother's face went pale. James was squeezing my hand so hard it hurt. My father was looking at me like he didn't recognize his own daughter. But none of them knew what I'd discovered 2 months ago. A piece of information that changed everything about this moment, everything about my mother's confession, and everything about whether I could actually believe a single word she'd just said. If you're still watching right now, you're exactly the kind of viewer I love. Subscribe so I can keep giving you stories that touch your heart. Hit that bell so you never miss what happens next. 2 months ago, I began, my voice eerily calm. I got a call from someone named Patricia Hendricks. Does that name mean anything to you, Mom? My mother's face went from pale to ashen. She knew. Of course she knew. Who's Patricia Hendricks? My father asked, looking between us. She's an estate lawyer, I said, keeping my eyes locked on my mother's face. She called me because there was an issue with Grandma Dorothy's will, your mother, Mom. Remember her? The one who died 2 years ago. My mother's hands were trembling now, reaching for her wine glass. Elena, this isn't the time. No, I think it's exactly the time. I leaned forward. See, there was a problem with the inheritance. Grandma Dorothy left me a trust fund, a substantial one actually. $150,000, to be released when I graduated with my master's degree. Which would be today. James gasped. He hadn't known about this. Neither had my father, based on the shock on his face. But here's the interesting part, I continued. According to Patricia, someone had been trying to contest the will. Someone had been arguing that I was mentally unfit to receive the inheritance, that I had substance abuse issues, that I was unreliable. Someone had been submitting falsified medical records and testimonials to try to get the trust redirected. Helen, my father breathed, understanding flooding his features. What did you do? My mother said nothing, but her silence was confession enough. The attorney fees alone were $30,000, I said. Money you didn't have. Money you needed. So when your claim failed and the trust was going to be released to me anyway, you came up with a new plan. If I was too sick to graduate, too sick to collect the inheritance, it would default to the next of kin, James finished, horror in his voice. To her. That's not true. My mother's voice was desperate now, but the lie was transparent. Elena, the cancer is real. I have the medical records, I can show you. Show me then. She fumbled with her purse, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. But I'd already seen what I needed to see. The flash of panic, the desperate scrambling. When she couldn't immediately find what she was looking for, I knew. There is no cancer, is there? I asked quietly. The question hung in the air. My father made a sound like he'd been punched. James's hand flew to his mouth. And my mother just stared at me with an expression that was equal parts fury and something that looked almost like impressed surprise, as if she couldn't believe I'd figured it out. You're smarter than I thought, she finally said, and her voice was different now, colder, harder, stripped of all maternal warmth. When did you know? I suspected when you said pancreatic cancer specifically. You know why? Because 3 weeks ago, you told Mrs. Kim next door that you were going on a yoga retreat next month. People with stage 4 pancreatic cancer don't plan yoga retreats. My father was openly crying now. Helen, please. Please tell me this isn't real. Tell me you didn't. What do you want me to say, Richard? My mother's mask had completely fallen away now, revealing someone I barely recognized. That I'm sorry? That I only did it because we're drowning in debt? Because your business failed and we're 3 months from foreclosure? Because your daughter was about to run off to Seattle with her shiny new job and her handsome fiancé and leave us with nothing? The trust was for Elena, my father shouted, drawing stares from across the restaurant. It was her inheritance from her grandmother who actually loved her. Her grandmother who cut us out of her will completely. My mother shot back. Who left everything to her precious granddaughter while her own daughter got nothing. Do you have any idea how that felt? I watched this woman, this stranger wearing my mother's face, and felt something fundamental shift in my chest. This wasn't a moment of desperation. This wasn't a mother making a tragic mistake out of love. This was calculated, premeditated theft. Attempted poisoning. Years of manipulation. How many times? I asked. How many times have you done this? The mysterious stomach flu I had before my undergraduate graduation ceremony? The food poisoning that made me miss my job interview last year. My mother's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, James whispered. You've been sabotaging her for years. I was protecting our family. My mother's voice rose, defensive and desperate. Everything I did was to keep us afloat, to keep us together. If Elena had taken that job last year, if she'd moved away then, we would have lost the house. I needed her here, needed her. You needed access to any money I might have, I finished. You needed to control me. My father was staring at his wife like she was a stranger. I want a divorce, he said quietly. Helen, I want you out of our house tonight. Our house? My mother laughed bitterly. Richard, there is no our house. The bank owns it. The bank owns everything. In 3 weeks, we lose it all unless. She stopped abruptly, but I knew where that sentence was going. Unless you got your hands on my trust fund, I said. My mother looked at me then, really looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes was something close to hatred. You were always so selfish, Elena. Even as a child. Everything was always about you, your needs, your dreams. You never once asked what we sacrificed to raise you. What we gave up. I didn't ask to be born, I said quietly. And I definitely didn't ask for a mother who would poison me for money. The words landed like a slap. My mother flinched, then slowly stood up, gathering her purse and her coat with trembling hands. I'll pack my things tonight, she said to my father, her voice hollow. I'll stay with my sister. No, I said, and something in my tone made everyone freeze. You're not going anywhere yet. Because I haven't told you what I'm going to do about all this. My mother turned to look at me, and in her eyes I saw fear. Real, genuine fear. I could call the police right now, I continued. Have you arrested for attempted poisoning? You'd go to prison, probably for years. Is that what you want? She said nothing. Or, I said slowly, we could make a different arrangement. One that benefits everyone. Well, almost everyone. And then I told them my plan. The plan I'd been forming since the moment I'd poured that poisoned champagne into James's water glass. The plan that would save my parents from financial ruin, protect my inheritance, and ensure my mother faced consequences for her actions. But the plan required something from everyone at that table. It required a sacrifice so devastating that when I finished explaining it, my father was the first to speak. Elena, he he said, his voice shaking. You can't be serious. You can't possibly expect us to. Oh, I'm completely serious, I interrupted. And Mom, you're going to agree to every single term. Because if you don't, I won't just call the police. I'll call Patricia Hendricks and I'll make sure that everyone, every single person who knows our family, learns exactly what kind of person you really are. My mother's face had gone gray. She knew I meant it. She knew I would do it. So what's it going to be, Mom? I asked, and I barely recognized my own voice. Do we do this my way? Or do I destroy you? The waiter approached our table tentatively, clearly sensing the apocalyptic tension radiating from our group. Is everything all right here? We've had some concerns from other guests. We're fine, I said without breaking eye contact with my mother. Just family business. Could you give us a few more minutes? He retreated quickly, and I turned my attention back to the 3 people who would determine the course of the rest of my life. Here's how this is going to work, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Mom, you're going to sign a legal document admitting to the attempted poisoning, the will contestation, and every instance of sabotage you've committed against me over the past 3 years. This document will be held by Patricia Hendricks in escrow. Absolutely not, my mother started, but I held up my hand. I wasn't finished. That document stays sealed as long as you comply with the following terms. 1. You enter mandatory therapy, real therapy, with a licensed psychologist who specializes in personality disorders. 2. You have 0 access to any of my finances, now or ever. 3. You will publicly admit to Dad and to me exactly what you did and why, with a genuine apology. And 4. I paused, and this was the part that would either break us completely or somehow, impossibly, begin a path to healing. 4. You and Dad are getting the house paid off. From my trust fund. My father's head snapped up. What? Elena, no. Absolutely not. We're not taking your. It's not a gift, Dad. It's a loan. A 15-year loan at 0% interest, with payments that start the day you get back on your feet financially. Every penny will be paid back. But here's the condition. I looked at my mother. You don't live there anymore. You move out. You find your own place. You support yourself. You figure out who you are when you can't manipulate and control the people around you. My mother's face had gone through several emotions, shock, calculation, relief, and finally something that looked almost like grudging respect. And if I refuse, she asked. Then I press charges. You go to prison. Dad loses the house anyway. And you lose any chance of ever having a relationship with me again. Or with your future grandchildren. I felt James squeeze my hand. We hadn't talked about children yet, but the implication was clear. My mother sat back down slowly, her whole body seeming to deflate. For the first time all night, she looked genuinely defeated. Why would you save the house if I have to leave it? She asked quietly. Because Dad doesn't deserve to be punished for your crimes. And because despite everything you've done, I remember that you weren't always this person. There were good years, Mom. When I was little, before whatever happened that turned you into someone who could poison her own child. Tears were rolling down my mother's cheeks now. Real ones, I thought, though I wasn't sure I could trust my judgment anymore. I was so afraid, she whispered. When the business failed, when the debt started piling up, I felt like I was drowning. And then you were leaving, and I thought if I could just keep you here, if I could just have access to that money, I could fix everything. I could go back to being the person I used to be. Money doesn't fix what's broken inside you, James said gently. Only you can do that. My mother looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time that evening. You love her, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. And you'll take care of her? When she goes to Seattle. James's voice was firm. I will. And if you do the work, real therapy, real change, maybe someday you'll get to be part of her life again. But that's not my decision to make. All eyes turned to me. The weight of that moment was crushing. This woman had given birth to me, raised me, tucked me in at night, and taught me to ride a bike. She'd also systematically sabotaged my life, tried to poison me, and attempted to steal my inheritance. Both versions of her were real. Both truths existed simultaneously. I need you to say it, I told her. All of it. Out loud. To Dad and to me. My mother took a shaking breath. Richard, Elena, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the poisoning. I'm sorry for trying to steal Elena's inheritance. I'm sorry for every time I made her sick, for every opportunity one destroyed, for every lie I told. I was terrified and desperate, and I convinced myself that controlling Elena was the same thing as loving her. Her voice broke. But it wasn't love. It was selfishness and fear, and I have become someone I don't recognize anymore. My father was openly sobbing now. I felt my own tears starting, hot and unexpected. I don't forgive you, I said, and my mother flinched. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm willing to see if you can become someone worthy of forgiveness. If you can do the work. If you can change. I'll try, she whispered. I'll really try. I pulled out my phone and called Patricia Hendricks, putting her on speaker. Patricia? It's Elena. I need you to draw up some documents. Tonight. As I outlined the terms of our agreement, the confession, the therapy requirements, the loan structure, the separation of finances, I watched my mother's face cycle through emotions. When I finished, Patricia said she'd have everything ready within 48 hours. There's one more thing, I added, looking at my mother. If you violate any term of this agreement, if you miss a therapy appointment, if you try to access my finances, if you come anywhere near James or me without explicit permission, the sealed confession goes straight to the police and the district attorney. No second chances. Do you understand? My mother nodded. I understand. We sat in silence for a moment, the wreckage of our family scattered around us like broken glass. Then my father spoke, his voice rough with emotion. I'm sorry too, Elena. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you. You didn't know, Dad. She fooled both of us. No more secrets, he said firmly. From any of us. This family has had enough secrets to last a lifetime. James cleared his throat. So does this mean we're still going to Seattle? I looked at him, this man who'd spotted the poisoning, who'd stood by me through the revelation, who'd shown more courage in one evening than most people show in a lifetime, and smiled. Yeah, I said. We're still going to Seattle. My flight is still tomorrow. My job still starts Monday. But, I turned to my father, I'll be back once a month. To check on the house payments. To make sure the terms are being followed. And Dad, you're welcome to visit anytime. All expenses paid. And me? My mother asked quietly. That depends entirely on you, I said. Show me you've changed. Actually change. Become the mother I needed instead of the one I got. Then maybe we can talk about visits. My mother nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. She stood slowly, gathering her things. I'll go pack tonight. Richard, I'll be at my sister's. My attorney will contact you about the separation agreement. Helen, my father said, and she paused. I did love you. I want you to know that. The woman I married, I loved her very much. I loved her too, my mother whispered. I'll try to find her again. As she walked away from our table, through the restaurant where curious diners pretended not to watch, I felt James lean against my shoulder. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen, he said quietly. Or the stupidest, I replied. Maybe both. My father reached across the table and took my hand. Your grandmother would be proud of you. What you did tonight, holding her accountable but giving her a chance at redemption, that's exactly who she was. Fair but firm. I hope I made the right choice. Time will tell, he said. But you made a choice that lets you sleep at night. That matters. The waiter approached again cautiously. Miss? About the bill. I almost laughed. After everything that had happened, someone still had to pay for the champagne and untouched appetizers. I'll take it, I said, pulling out my credit card. And could you bring us that champagne again? The real stuff this time. We have a toast to make. 20 minutes later, with fresh glasses and a new bottle that I'd watched the waiter open in front of us, my father raised his glass again. To Elena, he said, his voice stronger now, who taught us all tonight that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. May Seattle bring you everything you've earned and more. To Elena and James, I corrected, pulling him close. To new beginnings. We clinked glasses, and this time, I drank freely. The champagne was crisp and perfect, unmarred by betrayal or poison. It tasted like freedom. As we finished dinner, actually ate, finally after 2 hours of drama, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Thank you for not giving up on me completely. I know I don't deserve your mercy. I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to earn it. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry. I showed it to James, who raised an eyebrow. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a long moment, then typed. Actions, not words. Show me. Then I put my phone away and focused on the people who actually deserved my attention. My father, who'd had his world shattered but remained loving. And James, who'd saved my life and didn't even know how completely he'd done so. 3 months later, I got another text from Patricia Hendricks. My mother had attended every therapy session. She'd moved into a small apartment and gotten a part-time job. She was making the loan payments on schedule. The sealed confession remained sealed. 6 months after that, she asked if she could visit Seattle. I said maybe next year. A year to the day after that graduation dinner, she sent me a letter, actual handwritten pages, not a text. In it, she detailed her journey through therapy, the personality disorder diagnosis she'd received, the medication that was helping, the ways she was learning to cope with fear and anxiety without controlling others. She asked for nothing. She promised nothing. She just wanted me to know she was trying. I still haven't forgiven her. I'm not sure I ever will. But I read that letter 3 times, and each time, I felt something in my chest loosen just slightly. James and I got married in a small ceremony on Puget Sound. My father walked me down the aisle. My mother watched via video call, crying quietly in her therapist's office, where she'd asked to be for the event because she needed support to handle the emotions healthily. It wasn't the family reconciliation you see in movies. It wasn't neat or clean or fully resolved. But it was real. It was honest. And it was mine. Sometimes at night, I still think about that champagne glass. About how close I came to drinking it. About the life I would have lost. Not to death, probably, but to missing that flight, losing that job, staying trapped in the gravitational pull of my mother's dysfunction. But I also think about the choice I made that night. To give her consequences, but also a chance. To hold the line but leave the door open. To be neither too forgiving nor too cruel. I don't know if it was the right choice. But it was my choice. And in the end, that's what mattered. My name is Elena. 3 years ago, I caught my mother trying to poison me at my graduation dinner. What I did next didn't just stun the room. It changed the entire trajectory of 3 lives. And somehow, improbably, we all survived it. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Thank you.